Do you like punching your friends? Today's video comes at the recommendation of Greg Slinglin. They said, "Hey Suris, you liked the initiative mechanic. Do you think you'd be interested in seeing what you could do with the Rilsa Rael Kingpin deck? I've built one and tuned it repeatedly over the years I've had it. The original intent was to encourage my pod to actually swing when they don't have lethal on someone. It does that now, but I've since built it to speedrun the Undercity. Effects that give me extra upkeeps and extra Venter into the dungeon effects help me with this, Saints of the Second Sun, Shadow of the Second Sun, etc. But the other cheese is playing with the fat +5 Rilsa can hand out. With her fully online, cards like Horrid Shadow Spinner, Locks It on Warhammer, and Kane Traitorous Dragoon become nutty. I've got Ghoulcaller Gissa in there too, but she has yet to survive to my next turn for me to use her. I guess there's something about me repeatedly making a simple skeleton token exploding into 9 zombies that scares my pod. It's one of the most strong and fun decks I have, and can surprisingly play well with new decks being tested or new pod members being brought in to play with us. Alrighty, I think I've got a pretty decent idea of what you're looking for. Let's see what we can do for $20 with Rilsa Rael, and, you know, I doubt I'm going to make anything as good as you, because I'm working with this commander for the first time. I'm used to running this in the 99 of other decks, but running this as a commander is going to be new for me, so let's see what we can come up with. So the commander in question today is Rilsa Rael Kingpin, a legendary human rogue that costs a whopping 5 mana, has Death Touch, and gives us the initiative when she touches the battlefield. Her kicker is that whenever we attack, we can give another attacking creature Death Touch, making it harder for them to be blocked without severe consequences, and she also can give a creature 5/0 in First Strike and Menace if you've already completed a dungeon. So this commander really wants you to use the initiative to gain a lot of extra power and combat, and I think we're going to lean super heavily into that. Now, obviously, she is a rogue, so we have to ask ourselves, why not go ahead and make this a rogue tribal deck? And I think we've got a pretty good set of creatures that do what the deck wants to do here. We want evasive creatures that our opponents are not going to be able to block, because we want to be able to yank the initiative back from our opponent as many times as we possibly can. So we've got the 1 mana Slitherblade, Triton Shorestalker, and the Nightshade Stinger, and then we've got the Merfolk Wind Robber, who's got flying instead of unblockable. For 2 mana, we have Shoreline Looter and Looter Ilkor. These also I usually put into the draw section of a deck, but since we're focusing on evasive creatures, these are evasive creatures. Then we have Quickling, which will be able to let us reuse enter the battlefield effects like our commander's initiative ability, and is also a flying creature. Nighthawk Scavenger, a gigantic rogue that can hit for lots of damage and gives us tons of lifesteal. And then we have Sneaky Snacker, a flying creature that can reanimate herself so long as we have drawn our 3rd card during a turn. And there are some dungeons that let us do draw, so this is a fairly easy ability to get online. We're also going to want some Lords and Anthems in the deck, so Soaring Thought Thief is a flying creature that can also give our rogues 1/0. Silver Fur Master can give our rogues 1/1, and will also lower the cost of our ninjutsu abilities, and I'll go over ninjutsu here in a minute. Then we have Una's Blackguard, which gives our rogues the ability to come into play with a 1/1 counter, and if they deal damage to an opponent, we will then be able to draw a card. Then we have Anawan the Ruin Thief, who draws us cards when our rogues punch people, but also gives our rogues 1/1. Do note, he only draws us cards if they mill creatures, so don't go hitting the Spellslinger deck hoping that Anawan's going to give you what you want. Typically, he really won't. Then we have some reanimation and recursion to get into. We've got From the Catacombs, which can steal a card from every player's graveyard if we want, or any player's graveyard. Sorry, not every player's graveyard. That comes later. I got messed up there, but it does give us the initiative when we use it, which is already great, and it's got escape, so we can use this multiple times during a game. Then we have Back in Town, allowing us to reanimate any number of outlaw creatures from our graveyard, so long as we are willing to dump a bunch of extra mana into this. And you know what? we need to talk about the dungeon. Our commander does use the dungeon, so let's go ahead and have a bunch of cards that give us access to that. And it just so happens that the Aarakocra Sneak happens to be a bird rogue. Ravenloft Adventurer is also a rogue, and it can even make sure our opponents can't get things into the graveyard very easily. Then we have the Tomb of Horrors Adventurer, not a rogue, but it does allow us to copy spells, which will be important later on. Then we have the Yuan-Tai Malison, which if it's attacking alone can't be blocked, and if it deals combat damage to a player, we venture into the dungeon. So if your opponent has stolen the dungeon from you, the initiative from you, then we punch them and we go into the dungeon. If we're in the Undercity, because that's where you have to go when you take the initiative, then we will automatically go one floor further. And then when we gain the initiative from our opponent, we will then go another floor further. And this is incredibly powerful, being able to get multiple dungeon triggers at the same time. And since we're here looking at the Undercity, let's talk about how we're planning on using this. Our ideal route is going to be secret entrance into the Forge. The Forge will give us 1/1 counters to throw onto our rogues. Then we want to go into the Trap area to deal 5 damage to a player, or make a player lose 5 life. Then we go to the Archives to draw a card. Then we go to the Throne of the Dead 3 to get a free creature from the top 10 cards of our library with 3/1/1 counters. The reason we want to do this is because our deck is made up primarily of rogues. And rogues, if you've probably noticed so far, don't tend to have the greatest stat lines. We're looking at 2-1, 2-4, 1-1, 1-3, 1-1, 2-1, 1-1. Like, we are looking at itty-bitty stat lines. So while we have a couple of cards like Anawan and Silver Fur Master that can power up our rogues, our dungeon is going to be our primary method of making our rogues be able to hit a lot harder. And of course, our commander is also adding 5 power to these things once we have finished a dungeon. I did like Greg's idea of having Sphinx of the Second Sun and Shadow of the Second Sun in order to trigger our initiative abilities twice, because that will get us further into the dungeon, and we can at the very least get Sphinx of the Second Sun for free thanks to our dungeon abilities. But we also can discount this card quite a bit when we look at our next card, Satoru Umezawa. If we activate a ninjutsu ability, we can look at the top 3 cards of our library in order to put one of them onto into our hand and the others into the library again. But the real reason this guy is great is he gives all the creatures in our hand ninjutsu. And, well, cards like Sphinx of the Second Sun costing only 4 mana is kind of nutty, but let me make it a little more nutty for you. Let's say we have finished the initiative. So our commander is out on the board. Rilsa Rael Kingpin is here. She has given us the initiative. We attack. We give 5/0 and first strike to a creature. Let's say we give that to Slitherblade. Slitherblade is going to hit for 6 damage. But because of where and when ninjutsu happens after first strike damage and before normal combat damage. This means if Umezawa's out and we hit somebody with that 6 damage with first strike, we then get to use ninjutsu to throw in our Sphinx of the Second Sun and hit that person for an additional unblocked 6 damage. And because all of this is happening after the declare blockers phase, our opponents cannot intercede to try to block this. They can do nothing about it unless they have spells or activated abilities that can stop this 12 damage from happening. And of course, we have damage coming from the initiative as well. That 5 life loss that we can throw at people is going to stack up greatly and just whittle people away. But of course, we are also playing a rogue deck, and we wouldn't be playing a proper one unless we were playing a little bit with our opponent's cards. So let's talk about Fealty to the Realm. This is another way to give us access to that force everybody to attack idea that our original asker wanted us to play with. Fealty steals an opponent's creature, and then, so long as a player has the Monarch, they gain control of the creature. The creature is never able to attack you specifically, though. So this introduces the Monarch to your game, which gives you extra steps of draw, and also allows you to steal a powerful creature, which can sometimes win games. Then we have Zareth Zen the Trickster. Zareth Zen allows us to have a pseudo-ninjutsu ability to return an unblocked rogue to our hand to cast something for free from an opponent's graveyard. And again, this is identical to ninjutsu, so we can get the first strike damage in and then have Zareth come in and do his thing. We're also going to run Gaunty Knight Minister so that we can not only get treasure tokens from casting our opponent's spells, but also allow us to get a ton of free stuff from our opponent's libraries. Speaking of free stuff, Sepulchre Primordial and Diluvian Primordial will allow us to steal cards from our opponent's graveyard and get basically whatever we need all at once. Then we have the Silent Bladed Oni, a creature with a very hefty ninjutsu cost, but if it hits a player, we get to take anything from their hand and cast it. And I don't know about you, but I love when my opponent tutors their game-ending Craterhoof Behemoth, but they didn't have enough mana to cast it yet. They're just getting it ready to go, and you go, ah, that's such a cool card. I think I'll take it. Thank you. I love doing that shit. Finally, let's talk about copying our stuff. Obviously, we're running some ninjutsu things, so Thousand Face Shadow can copy our creatures really well when it ninjutsu's in, but let's also run Reflections of Litjara and Double Down, so every time we cast one of our rogues, we'll be able to get extra copies of it on the board to increase the combat damage we're doing to our opponents. Let's also play a Stolen Identity. While it's got a hefty mana cost, being able to create copies of creatures every time one of our creatures deals damage to an opponent is really good in a mostly unblockable deck. We can also put the Siphon under a relatively weak creature so that our opponents feel extra terrible when they have to spend removal on it. And remember, this can just create copies of our commander so that we can keep on going and getting the initiative no matter what the scenario. And that really does it for all of our core strategy. We've got a bunch of evasive creatures, ways to copy our initiative triggers, ways to copy our creatures to get more initiative triggers, and ways to engage in copious amounts of violence and damage. So now we just gotta talk about drawing cards, right? Now, for draw power, we're going to be starting out with the Canal Courier, a rogue that allows us to get the Monarch ability, and if it and another creature attacks, this card can't be blocked during combat. Pretty classic rogue stuff, just not able to be blocked. It's a bit overcosted in the mana department, but I think that's fine in order to facilitate a lot of people punching each other very quickly. Then we have Discreet Retreat, which says that anytime we cast our first Outlaw spell, we get to draw a card and lose 1 life. It also kind of ramps us a little bit too, which is nice. Then we have the Hollow Marauder, a card that will steal cards from our opponents. Not really steal, but, throw them away to the graveyard. And if they choose the wrong cards to throw away, then we get to draw a card for each and every one of them that threw away a card that did not have a mana value 4 or greater. Then we have Military Intelligence, which draws us a card whenever we attack with 2 or more creatures, Coastal Piracy, Bident of Thassa, and Reconnaissance Mission, which all draw us a card whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player. Marchesa's Degree, which gives us a small degree of protection from combat, because anytime a creature attacks us or a planeswalker we control, then an opponent will lose 1 life. And it also gives us the Monarch, along with Thorn of the Black Rose, which can also give us the Monarch. Good removal is the backbone of any deck's B strategy. Stopping our opponents from winning the game is almost as good as trying to win the game ourselves, so let's see what we have access to. Smirking Spelljacker can yank a spell from an opponent so we can cast it ourselves. Resculpt and Feed the Swarm can get rid of a problematic card on the board as long as it's a creature, enchantment, or artifact. Negate and Refute are basic counterspells that just do what's written on the tin, and Bar the Gate's a counterspell that also allows us to go further into the dungeon, but it can only counter creature spells. Precipitous Drop lets us go to the dungeon as well, but it gives a creature -2/-2 when we use it, -5/-5 if we have completed a dungeon during this game. Then we have the Dakochi Slicer, a creature with ninjutsu that says if it deals combat damage to a player, we can then discard a creature card and blow up any creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. A pseudo-repeatable way to blow up creatures if we have the odds stacked up in our favor. Then we have a Thieving Skydiver, a creature with flying that also lets us steal any artifact or equipment from our opponent. Use this to yank away your opponent's soul ring and just cast it away, everybody. Then for our board wipes, we're going to be running a Necromantic Selection because we want to get rid of everything and also steal from our opponents, and a Final Act to let us blow up any number of problematic things we need or remove experience counters from somebody who's playing that new fucking Kratos deck. For ramp, we want to be running ramp that is low to the ground wherever possible because all of our creatures cost only a little bit, and we're just using the ramp to get us closer to our commander a little quicker. So we're going to run the 2-mana mana rocks of Sky Diamond, Fractured Power Stone, Charcoal Diamond, Mind Stone, and Arcane Signet, as they all cost 2 mana and do what they need to do pretty well. Then we have Wayfarer's Bauble to crack and get a land out of the deck because it is the safest form of land ramp. Heraldic Banner to power up all of our creatures, and also it just gives us access to mana, which is good. The Frog Tosser Banneret allows us to have access to some ramp for goblins and rogues. Our deck is almost all rogues, so this should be able to ramp a good chunk of our deck for us. And then the Prosperous Thief, which has ninjutsu, and if any ninja or rogue we use deals combat damage to a player, we are then allowed to create a treasure token, allowing us to get a ton of treasures so long as our board is set up. Then for our basic lands, we're going to be running 11 islands and 8 swamps because we lean a little heavier on the blue, with our Dimir lands being Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, a Creeping Tar Pit as a tapped land, but it can become an unblockable creature, which is great, a Drowned Catacomb, a Tainted Isle, a Darkwater Catacomb, a Choked Estuary, Sunken Hollow, and a River of Tears. Those are all of our untapped lands. For our tapped lands, we have a Temple of Deceit, so we have access to Scry early, Fetid Pools in case we get mana clumped, Dimir Aqueduct in order to get a better hand sculpting early if we need it, and as you upgrade the deck, you can use this to reuse things like Bajugavog. Let's run just an Evolving Wilds and a Terramorphic Expanse as our no payoff, multiple basic land searchers in the deck. There are more in the game now, but I don't want to run too many tapped lands if I don't have to. Let's also run a Myriad Landscape so that we can ramp when we need it, and then for our utility lands, a Rogue's Passage for unblockable, a Throne of the High City to introduce the Monarch into the game the brute force way, and then a Port of Carfell because we can use this to reanimate creatures from our grave. With that said, that's basically everything in the deck. All that's left to do now is to take it for a test drive. So the hand we have here is a little awkward. We got a Terramorphic Expanse and a Myriad Landscape and a Drowned Catacomb, so 3 of the 4 lands in our hand will come into play tapped. We also have a Sneaky Snacker, but it's pipped really weird, and then we have a Reconnaissance Mission, which is great payoff if we were playing a different kind of hand. This hand makes me uneasy, but I think we can run it. Let's see what we get. Ooh, an Una's Blackguard. Perfect. Let's go ahead and play that Terramorphic Expanse. Bracket. We know we need black mana for the Blackguard, but we know we need 2 blue mana for that, so if we get a swamp out, we can use the Myriad Landscape to give us the other lands we need. So let's go ahead and move on to turn 2. We draw a Temple of Deceit, another tapped land. See, this is why I didn't want to run too many tapped lands. It's kind of awkward. We do have a Drowned Catacombs. It's not going to come into play tapped on its own. So let's go ahead and play the Catacombs, tap 2. Let's get Una's Blackguard out and ready to go. Next turn comes up, we get a swamp, and I really think we need to get this Sneaky Snacker out. Best way to do that is going to be to play the Temple of Deceit. Now, we're doing this instead of the Myriad Landscape so that we can get the Scry, because I feel like that's more important than the potential ramp later on. So let's go ahead and Scry. We have a River of Tears. I'm willing to toss that away because we have 3 lands in our hand already. Let's go ahead and throw that to the bottom of the deck. Pay 2, let's get Sneaky Snacker out, and it's going to get a 1/1 counter because of Una's Blackguard. And let's punch somebody in the face with a Blackguard for good measure. Moving into the next turn, let's go ahead and play ourselves a Swamp. Tap 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go ahead and get Recon Mission out so that when we swing with both of our creatures, we get to draw 2 cards. Now, I'm doing this instead of using the initiative from Aarakocra Sneak because I feel like the Reconnaissance Mission is going to dodge board wipes. Turn 5 and 6 is when board wipes start coming out, and now that we're ending turn 4, people are going to start trying to cast those. I think Recon Mission survives more of that, so I'd rather put more of my eggs in that basket. Also, drawing 2 cards is more important to me than getting the initiative out a turn earlier. Moving into the next turn, and we have drawn a Swamp. Let's go ahead and put that swamp on. No, we need to go and get Command Tower out. We need access to all of our stuff in as good a way as we can get it. And Silent Bladed Oni, that's going to cost us 6 when the time comes. Let's go ahead and tap everything out, get Rilsa out. Let's go ahead and grab the Undercity so that we can see where we're at. So Undercity, of course, our very first mission is to go into the deck and yank out a basic land. We already have some swamps on the board, so let's pull an island out, and let's punch with both of our creatures to draw 2 cards. A double down is a fantastic card for us to see off the top. Let's go ahead and throw away the Myriad Landscape as we end our turn, and probably that swamp, because when our next turn comes up, we're going to play this island. Tap 1, 2... the Mind Stone. Tap 1, 2, 3, 4 to play the double down. And then we're going to pay 1, and we are going to get out 2 Shore Stalkers. And because these are rogues, our Una's Blackguard is going to pump each of them up. So every time one of these punches our opponents, we will be able to go and steal a card from their hand and throw it to the graveyard. So let's go ahead and punch again with our 2 creatures here, getting us 2 draws. And of course, the Undercity, somebody would have stolen the Undercity from us somehow. So we're getting it back here, and we're putting 2 1/1 counters on the Sneaky Snacker. We're trying to keep as many counters as we can away from the Una's Blackguard, because the Una's Blackguard is going to be just a huge point of removal for our opponents. Let's prevent that from being a thing that they have access to. So our opponent's turn is going to come up. They're, of course, going to yank the initiative from us again. I doubt that we're going to be able to block them if we don't have any flyers, and we don't have any. So our turn's going to come up. We have Zareth Sen the Trickster. This is a unfortunate card with double down because we can't stop our outlaw spells from having legendary right now. So I think what we do is we play this swamp here. And let's take the initiative back from our opponents. Let's punch with all of these, assuming we're going to be discarding 4 cards away and drawing at least 3 cards from this. Maybe Una Blackguard doesn't swing because somebody's got a setup that makes it really unfortunate for us to try to get it. I don't know what the situation would be there, but let's say that we're swinging and getting at least 3 cards. Now, I played a land early. That was a mistake because we drew a Port of Karfell. So what we're going to do now, though, is we're going to pay 1, 2, 3, 4. And we are going to... remember, somebody's burning for 5 because we hit somebody and we got the initiative back. Then we're going to play Aarakocra Sneak. Aarakocra Sneak is a bird rogue, so it's going to gain a counter from Una. And then we get a second copy of the Aarakocra Sneak because of the double down. Now that we've done that, we get 2 instances of the initiative. So we get to draw a card, and then we get to look at the top 10 cards of our library and throw a creature down for free. And I think I already know what the creature's going to be. I'm basically grabbing the other ones just because that's what the rules say we have to do. I already know it's going to be Sphinx of the Second Sun. That is the most powerful of any of the options we could have gotten as far as I am concerned. With that said, I really wish we had a counterspell in our hand, but we are not a super interaction-heavy deck, and I really wish that I would have played that Port of Karfell when I did. So, where we're sitting right now... actually, I'm dumb. There is a move we could have done as well. Combat damage hits. We could have done Ninjutsu of the Prosperous Thief. That would have been the move. Because it would have been Ninjutsu Prosperous Thief. And then another move. So we're just going to eat that we didn't get that when we were supposed to. Looking at what we have in our hand right now, it's best to spend all of our mana. Because we're going to get all that mana untapped when our turn ends. Let's see. Beginning of post-combat main phase, there's additional... beginning phase. No, there will not be. We will not actually get it. We played the Aarakocra Sneaks. Unfortunately, we played them during main phase 2. So we actually don't get an extra untapped step this turn, which is really unfortunate. I should have thought of that when I set this up, but everybody makes mitts-aches, and this is my mitts-ache to make. Then, let's see here. We're going to go into... at least this has the 3/1/1 counters. We're going to go into the next turn. Let's go ahead and get that Port of Karfell out, because we know no matter what we draw, we want that Port of Karfell out and ready to go. Also, I shouldn't have this Exotic Orchard. I lied. So because of the way the initiative works, because we finished the initiative, when our... No, we don't have the extra upkeep. No. We don't have that yet. I'm lying to myself. We got to steal the initiative from another player. We're going to go ahead and swing in and do that. Now, Rilsa sees that we are swinging in with creatures. Here's what we're going to do. Aarakocra Sneak is going to go back to our hand after getting the plus 5 power from Rilsa. So it's going to hit somebody for 7. And then we're going to pay 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we are going to ninjutsu the Silent Bladed Oni on top. So they're going to get hit for another 6. They're getting hit for 13 minimum. And then the Silent Bladed Oni will deal combat damage to them and cast a spell from their hand. Then, I want this Triton Shore Stalker. Yeah, I want that back in my hand too. We're going to put that back to our hand, and we are going to ninjutsu in the Prosperous Thief. One or more ninjas or rogues deal combat damage to a player. We get to create a treasure token. So, we are going to then get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 treasures. And we're doing that so that after we get the Undercity ability, go into the library, get the island out of it, we're going to be able to spend 4 of those treasures, putting the Aarakocra Sneak and its buddy, the Aarakocra Sneak, out, which is going to put us 2 more bits further into the dungeon. Let's go ahead and put 1, 2, 3 counters onto the Triton Shore Stalker. And we get to make a person lose 5 life again. Now we have 2 treasures available, and there is very little reason not to just spend them, because we're going to be discarding a card out of our hand if we don't. So let's go ahead and spend the one of the treasures to get Triton Shore Stalker and its buddy, Triton Shore Stalker, out on the board. And then that is going to be the end of our turn 8. We get to untap everything when we do that and draw an extra card, because that is what Sync to the Second Sun allows us to do. This is where we're at on turn 8. Now, per the rules of the bracket system, turn 8 having this kind of setup technically makes this deck a bracket 2. I'm going to say it's somewhere between a bracket 2 and a bracket 3, though, because this is a lot to deal with, and we've been making our opponents discard a lot up to this point. I'd say we're in a pretty decent spot, all things considered. If you're planning on upgrading this deck, then some of the Monarch stuff that's a bit overcosted can be swapped out for cards like Grazilix to give us more coastal piracy effects. We can also run a Notorious Throng to get a ton of black fairy rogue tokens, and it also has the ability to give us access to extra turns, which, so long as we're not chaining them together, is within the spirit of the bracket system. But, like, just don't be a dick. Like, extra turn spells are still kind of... just kind of gross. But you're playing rogues and stealing cards, so be gross, I guess. We also should be running MDFCs like Glasspool Mimic and Malakir Rebirth. Being able to have access to more flexibility in our land slots is always going to be helpful. Just make sure you get rid of some of your tapped lands when you put these in. You already saw me have to struggle a little bit with the tapped land scenario when I was playing the deck. Then we have Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots, Lava Spur Boots, all of those things that give creatures haste and a little bit of protection. All of those help out a deck like this a ton. We can also clone a bit better. This deck is really happy to clone its cards, and Erenicus's Vile Duplication and Spark Double can clone the Commander to give us even more initiative triggers and more instances of that sweet +5 first strike menace ability. Then we have cards like Douthie Voidwalker, who are rogues that have the ability to just steal cards from the opponent, prevent them from playing Magic the Gathering if they're Reanimator players. Just all-around fantastic card. Fairy Mastermind's also a great one to throw in here because it draws us cards when our opponents draw cards, and I would rather run this than a Notion Thief. It costs less mana, and it gets less feels. And you know, if you want to be boring, you could always put in a Roaming Throne. Like, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but doubling rogue triggers is, in fact, a powerful thing to do. It's Roaming Throne. And I don't know about you, but I kind of find Roaming Throne boring. But if you want upgrades for tribal decks, Roaming Throne is your guy. That all said, that is it for me with this deck. I want to know what y'all think. Let me know in the comment section below. I want to thank Greg for the suggestion for which deck to build today. I also want to ask you that if you want to pick up this deck, could you do me the biggest of favors and head over to the buy deck section over here in Moxfield. The deck is going to be in the description below. All you got to do is click that button there and then pick up the deck here. And of course, anytime you're picking up a deck from Moxfield, for me, if you would be so kind as to use the sponsor of this channel, Mana Pool, there's a link in the description right here. When you click that, if you've not used Mana Pool before, you'll get a $5 off coupon for anything you pick up on the Mana Pool website. If you have used Mana Pool before, then irrespective, it will still end up helping out the channel, as every purchase done through my link does help me keep making videos like this one. That all said, thank you all for watching. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you being here. And as always, I will hopefully see you all in the next one.